My name is Adam. I'm 36 years old and I've been married to my wife Sarah for 8 years. We met in college and like many couples, we were drawn to each other by shared interests, a love for adventure, and mutual respect. Our relationship was built on trust, laughter, and those quiet moments that only true companions understand. I always believed we had something solid, something built to last. Sarah is kind, witty, and incredibly caring. She's always been the life of the party, the one who knows how to make everyone feel at ease. I admire her for that. We've built a life together, a house, careers, a shared group of friends. Life had its ups and downs, but we were always able to navigate them together. Or at least I thought we were. It was a Friday night when it all started unraveling. The day had been typical: work, errands, a brief chat over lunch. We didn't have any plans for the evening, but our close-knit group of friends had decided to have a little board game night at our house. We hadn't done one of these in a while, and while Sarah had insisted that we go all out with snacks and drinks, I didn't mind. It was fun, a break from the routine. The friends who were coming over were the usual bunch. There was Mike and Julia, who were married and had 2 kids, always running late, but always bringing a ton of energy. Then there was Emma and Ben, the slightly older couple who always seemed to be in some existential crisis about their lives and careers. But they were good company. Everyone was looking forward to the night, and I was no exception. I spent most of the evening in the kitchen, preparing the food and making sure everyone had what they needed. The laughter and chatter from the living room echoed through the house, making it feel warm and alive. Sarah and I had always enjoyed hosting, and I could tell she was enjoying herself, smiling, laughing, talking animatedly with everyone. She looked beautiful as always, her blonde hair cascading in soft waves, her eyes bright with joy. By the time the board game was set up, everyone was well into their drinks. I noticed Sarah had been drinking a little more than usual, but I didn't think much of it. She was a social drinker, but she never overdid it. It was just the atmosphere of the night, the relaxed vibe of old friends coming together for a bit of fun. The first few rounds of the game went smoothly, but by the third, things started to take a strange turn. We were playing a game called Code Names, one of those word association games where you have to give clues to get your team to guess words. It's simple, but it gets competitive, especially after a few drinks. As the game progressed, Sarah seemed to be getting a little more animated. She was laughing louder than usual, a bit more flirtatious with Mike. Nothing too blatant, but enough to catch my attention. I shrugged it off, convincing myself I was just imagining things. They were good friends after all, and Sarah had always been outgoing. But then came the moment that would change everything. Mike, who had clearly had one too many beers, leaned back in his chair, his face flushed from the alcohol, and slurred a comment that made my heart stop. "You know," Mike said, looking at Sarah with a wide grin, "I always thought the two of you were so perfect together. It's funny how much you've changed, Sarah. I mean, I remember how you used to be, back when you were with him." For a moment, the room fell silent. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Him? What did he mean by that? My mind raced. I turned my gaze towards Sarah, trying to gauge her reaction. Her face instantly flushed, and I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Guilt? Panic? But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by a nervous laugh. "What are you talking about, Mike?" Sarah replied, her voice light, trying to brush off the comment. But there was a tremor in it that I couldn't ignore. "You're drunk. Stop being ridiculous." Mike, still laughing, waved his hand dismissively. "Nah, I'm serious. I'm just saying, you were so, I don't know, wild back then, Sarah, and now you've become this domestic goddess." He shot a glance at me. "No offense, Adam. You know I think the world of you, man, but she's really changed." The entire room went quiet, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me. My heart thudded in my chest as I looked at Sarah. Her face had gone pale, and she was shifting uncomfortably in her seat. I couldn't read her expression, but I knew something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Mike, can we just play the game?" Sarah said, her voice tight. She reached for her drink, downing it in one go. I watched her, unable to process what had just happened. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. I tried to laugh it off, to ease the tension that had built up, but my mind was spinning. I tried to think back to when I'd seen Sarah and Mike together before, trying to piece together anything that might explain his comment. But all I could think of was the fact that he knew something. Something I didn't know. Something Sarah wasn't telling me. The game continued, but I was no longer paying attention to the board. My thoughts were consumed by Mike's words. Back when you were with him, who was he? Why would Mike say that? And why had Sarah reacted the way she did? The evening dragged on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed. The walls I'd built around my marriage, the trust I thought was unshakable, suddenly felt fragile. I watched Sarah carefully, noting the way she avoided eye contact with me, the way her smile seemed forced, the way her laughter sounded hollow. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and I wasn't sure if I would ever be able to uproot them. The rest of the evening went by in a haze. The laughter continued, but it sounded distant to me, like I was watching it unfold from behind a thick glass. I tried to focus on the game, to act normal, to pretend that everything was fine. But Mike's comment kept echoing in my head, bouncing off the walls louder and louder. Back when you were with him, who was he? And why did it seem like Sarah was trying so hard to brush it off? By the time the game ended and everyone started heading home, I could feel the tension still hanging thick in the air. Sarah, who had been laughing just hours before, was quieter now. She wasn't her usual self, and I couldn't ignore the way she was avoiding my eyes. She had always been open with me, always the first to share details of her day, her thoughts, her worries. But now there was a wall between us, a wall that hadn't been there before. We were cleaning up the kitchen together when I finally decided I couldn't keep pretending like nothing had happened. My stomach was in knots, and my heart was heavy, but I couldn't wait any longer. I had to ask her about Mike's comment, about him. Sarah, I said quietly, my voice catching in my throat. What did Mike mean by that? Who was he talking about? She froze for a second, her hand still gripping the edge of the sink as she turned to look at me. Her face was pale, and I could see the panic flash in her eyes before she quickly masked it with a forced smile. What do you mean, Adam? She asked, her voice too sweet, too calm. She was avoiding my gaze, which only made the knots in my stomach tighten. You know exactly what I mean, I replied, my voice steady, but the tension was palpable. Mike said something weird tonight. Something about how you used to be with someone else, and how you've changed. He said, well, back when you were with him, and you acted like it was no big deal. But it is a big deal, Sarah. You're hiding something. What's going on? Her face flushed, and she set down the dish she was holding, her fingers trembling slightly. She took a deep breath, as if preparing herself for something, before she finally met my gaze. Adam, it's not what you think, she started, her voice quiet. Mike was just drunk. He didn't mean anything by it. I could feel my patience starting to wear thin. Don't lie to me, Sarah. I've been with you long enough to know when something's off. What did he mean by him? Her eyes flickered to the side for a moment, and that tiny shift in her gaze was all it took to confirm my suspicions. I stepped closer to her, my heart pounding in my chest. Tell me the truth, Sarah. Who was he talking about? Who is him? Sarah swallowed hard, her eyes welling with tears, and for a moment I almost felt guilty for pushing her so hard. Almost. But the truth was, I needed to know. I couldn't stand living with the doubt anymore. She took another shaky breath before speaking. It's not what you think. There was someone before you. Someone I met when I was living in New York. I froze. New York? Before me? She had never mentioned anyone from New York, never even hinted at anything. My mind raced, trying to process what she was saying. Sarah had been open with me about everything, her past relationships, her mistakes, her history. But this was something I didn't know, and that scared me more than anything. Why are you just telling me this now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why haven't you told me about him before? She bit her lip, her gaze dropping to the floor. I didn't want to hurt you. It's been so long ago, and I thought it was better to leave it in the past. But I guess I never really let it go. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Let what go, Sarah? What are you talking about? Was there something more between you two? Did you sleep with him? She shook her head quickly, her face pale. No, Adam, no, it wasn't like that. But there were feelings, strong ones. And it was a part of my life that I didn't want to bring into our marriage. It was just complicated. Complicated, I repeated, my voice trembling with anger. What does that even mean, Sarah? You're telling me that there was someone else before me, someone you still have feelings for, and now I'm supposed to just act like everything's fine? She stepped forward, her hands outstretched as if to comfort me, but I pulled back, not wanting her touch. Not yet. I'm so sorry, Adam. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to explain it. But I promise you, I never cheated on you. I never did anything that would break our vows. I swear it. I stood there staring at her, my mind racing. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that everything was just a misunderstanding, that this was all part of her past that didn't matter anymore. But the doubt was creeping in, slowly, making its way into every corner of my mind. She had never told me about him. She had hidden it from me. Why? You didn't tell me about him, Sarah. You kept him a secret. You never mentioned him once in the 8 years we've been together. How can I trust you after all this? Her face crumpled, and she stepped back, as if the weight of my words hit her like a punch. I never wanted to hurt you, Adam. I didn't think it mattered. I thought we'd moved past it. I thought it was in the past. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm in my chest. I didn't know what to do with this information. I didn't know how to process it. I need time, Sarah. I need space to think about this. I don't know how to move forward from here. She nodded silently, tears falling from her eyes. I understand, Adam. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. I walked out of the kitchen, my mind spinning. I needed time, yes, but I also needed answers. I needed to know if I could live with this new truth, and I didn't know if I could. The days that followed were an exhausting blur. I tried to keep my distance from Sarah, giving myself the space I had asked for. But it wasn't as simple as that. It wasn't just about needing time to think. It was about needing time to process everything I had learned, the secrets she had kept from me, the man from her past that she had never mentioned. It all weighed on me like an anchor. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't ignore the questions swirling in my mind. I went to work, but my thoughts were consumed by Sarah. Her confession played in my head over and over again. There were feelings, strong ones. It was complicated. What did that even mean? How could she keep something like that from me for so long? Why was it so hard for her to share something so crucial, so important? We had always been honest with each other, or so I thought. When I came home that night, Sarah was sitting on the couch waiting for me. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She had been patient with me, but I could tell she was worried. And honestly, so was I. My mind was racing, my emotions a tangled mess of anger, hurt, and confusion. How could I even look at her the same way again? She stood up as I entered the room, her voice trembling. Adam, I know you need time. I know you're angry, and I don't blame you for that. But please, can we just talk? Please? I stood in the doorway staring at her, trying to make sense of it all. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to make sense of this mess she had dragged me into. But I didn't know where to start. How could I even begin to understand what had happened? How could I begin to trust her again? I don't know what to say, Sarah, I said quietly, my voice hoarse. I don't know what to do with this. You've kept this secret for so long, and now you're telling me that there's someone from your past you've never told me about. How do you expect me to just move on from that? She looked down at the floor, her hands clasped together, her fingers twisting nervously. I didn't want to hurt you, Adam. I didn't want to make things more complicated. I was afraid that if I told you about him, you wouldn't understand, or worse, you would think that I still had feelings for him. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to calm my racing thoughts. But you did keep it from me. For all these years, you kept it hidden, and now I don't know what to believe. What else haven't you told me? I swear to you, Adam, she said, her voice shaky but sincere, I never intended to hurt you. The feelings I had for him, they were from a long time ago. They're not there anymore. I'm committed to you. You're the one I want. The one I've always wanted. But why did you keep it a secret? I pressed, my anger creeping back in. Why didn't you tell me before? Why did it take Mike's comment for you to finally admit it? She closed her eyes, her face full of regret. I was ashamed. I thought that if I told you, it would change everything. I thought it would ruin what we had. And I didn't want to lose you, Adam. You're my life. You're everything to me. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that everything she said was true, that this was just a mistake, a misstep in a relationship that had otherwise been perfect. But the truth was, I couldn't ignore the way her words made me feel. I couldn't ignore the doubt that was now festering in my mind, the doubt that I had never had before. The next few days were the hardest I had ever lived through. I tried to focus on my work, but my mind kept drifting back to the same painful questions. How had we gotten here? How had Sarah and I, who had built our lives together, found ourselves so divided by secrets and lies? I couldn't concentrate, couldn't even bring myself to go through the motions of normal life without feeling like I was living in a fog of uncertainty. Everywhere I looked, there were reminders of the life we had shared, the photos on the walls, the books we'd read together, the places we'd traveled. It all felt tainted now. I couldn't see our home the same way. I couldn't walk into the kitchen without remembering how we used to laugh over dinner, how we'd sit on the porch at night, sipping wine, talking about the future. I couldn't ignore how much had changed, how fragile everything now seemed. The silence between Sarah and I was suffocating. She had given me the space I needed, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't know how much time I needed. Could I ever move past this? Could I ever forgive her for the trust she had broken? Could we go back to the way things were? Or was this the beginning of the end? I had to make a decision. I knew I couldn't keep living like this. But every time I thought about confronting Sarah again, a wave of doubt washed over me. Could I really look at her and believe that she was still the same person I had married? Or would I always see her through the lens of betrayal? It was the weekend when I finally decided that I couldn't keep avoiding the conversation. Sarah was sitting on the couch when I came downstairs, her eyes tired, her face pale. She had been waiting for me, and I knew she was desperate for answers, answers I didn't know how to give her. I've been thinking, I began, my voice quieter than I intended, about everything you told me, about Mike's comment, about the man from your past. Sarah looked up at me, her face filled with anxiety. And? She asked, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I don't know if I can move forward from this, Sarah. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know how to rebuild the trust that's been broken. She flinched at my words, and for a moment I saw a flash of pain in her eyes. But she didn't back down. She stood up slowly and took a step toward me. I understand, Adam. I know what I've done. I've hurt you, and I don't expect forgiveness right away. I don't even expect you to want to stay with me. But please, please let me prove to you that I can be the woman you need. I'll do anything. I shook my head, my frustration rising again. It's not about what you do, Sarah. It's about what you kept from me. It's about the fact that I didn't know anything about this man until Mike said something. I feel like you've been living a double life, and that hurts more than anything else. I don't know how to trust you again. Her face crumpled as she stepped closer, but this time I didn't back away. I wanted to feel her touch, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if I could ever feel the same way about her again. I know, she said softly, her voice cracking. I can't undo what I've done, but I swear to you, Adam, that I never meant for it to get this far. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you, and I want to make things right. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to process her words. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But how could I when everything she said felt like a patch over a gaping wound? How do I know you're being honest, Sarah? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. How do I know this isn't just another lie? How do I know that I can trust you again? She reached out, taking my hand gently, her fingers trembling. You don't know. I can't make you trust me right now. But I'm asking for a chance to prove that I'm committed to making this right, that I'm committed to us. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for a brief moment I could see the woman I had married, the woman I had fallen in love with. But beneath that, I saw the person who had kept secrets, the person who had betrayed my trust. I wasn't sure if I could reconcile those two people. I need more time, I said finally, my voice quiet but firm. I don't know if I can forgive you, but I also don't know if I'm ready to give up on us. I don't know what to do. Sarah nodded, her eyes full of relief but also sadness. I understand. I'll wait. I'll give you as much time as you need. I'll do whatever it takes. She stepped back, giving me space. And in that moment, I realized that I was no longer the man I had been. The trust I had once had in her, in our relationship, had been shattered. I didn't know how long it would take to rebuild, if it could ever be rebuilt at all. But one thing was certain. I couldn't make this decision in the heat of the moment. I needed time to figure out if I could move past this, or if this was the end of the road. The following week passed slowly, each day feeling heavier than the last. Sarah gave me the space I had asked for, though I could feel the weight of her presence in the house every time I walked through the door. She was there, but she was a stranger now, and I didn't know how to bridge the gap between the woman I had loved and the woman who had betrayed me. Every time I saw her, I felt the same knot in my stomach, the same mix of love and resentment fighting for dominance. She was doing everything right, apologizing, being patient, offering reassurance, but it wasn't enough. It felt like no amount of words or actions could ever undo the damage that had been done. I couldn't stop the memories of her confession from replaying in my mind, her words echoing in my head like a broken record. There were feelings, strong ones. I didn't know how to stop. I had spent the past few days trying to focus on anything else. Work, cleaning up the house, anything that would keep me from thinking about Sarah and what she had done. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape her. And the worst part was, I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know if I wanted to forgive her or walk away. I had always prided myself on being a rational person. I believed in working through problems, finding solutions, and moving forward. But this was different. How could I move forward when the foundation of our marriage had been cracked so deeply? Could I ever look at Sarah the same way again? Could I ever trust her with my heart? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't just about the affair. It wasn't just about the lies or the man from her past or the secrets she had kept from me. It was about the feeling of betrayal, the feeling that everything I had believed in was now a lie. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was the fact that Sarah had hidden something so significant from me for so long. And that was the part I didn't know if I could get past. It was that evening, when I had just finished dinner and was sitting in the living room, that I finally decided to confront her again. I couldn't keep running from this. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. I had to face the reality of our situation. Sarah walked into the room, her eyes searching mine, as if waiting for some kind of sign. She had been so patient, so understanding, but I could see the anxiety behind her eyes. She was waiting for me to make a decision. She was waiting for me to tell her what would happen next. I took a deep breath, my hands gripping the armrests of the couch. Sarah, I said, my voice steady but filled with the weight of everything I was feeling. I've been thinking about everything, about what you said, about what we've been through. She sat down across from me, her eyes wide, her hands trembling slightly. I know, Adam. I know you're still hurt. I know I've broken your trust, and I don't blame you for feeling this way. But I need you to know that I love you, and I want to make this right. I'll do anything to prove that to you. I closed my eyes trying to find the right words. This was the hardest conversation I had ever had. I had been so sure of everything in our marriage, so confident that we were a team. But now I didn't know what was left. I want to believe you, Sarah, I said quietly, my voice filled with pain. I want to believe that we can move past this, that we can rebuild what's been broken, but I don't know how. I don't know if I can ever trust you again, and that scares me. It scares me to think that everything we had might be gone. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she reached across the table, her hand trembling as she touched mine. I know. I know this is hard, but I swear to you, Adam, that I'm committed to making this right. I'm committed to you, to us. I don't want to lose you. I've made the biggest mistake of my life, and I'm so sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life showing you that I can be the woman you need." I stared at her hand in mine, my heart aching with the knowledge that I still loved her, still cared for her deeply. But love wasn't enough to fix this. It wasn't enough to make the hurt go away. "I need more than promises, Sarah," I said, my voice tight. "I need to know that you're willing to do the work, that you're not just asking for forgiveness, but that you're actually ready to change. I don't want to just move on from this. I want to know that this will never happen again, that you're committed to rebuilding the trust that was broken." She nodded, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm ready, Adam. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to therapy. I'll talk to you more. I'll be open with you. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." I looked at her, and for a moment I could see the woman I had married. But the doubt was still there, gnawing at me. Could I really trust her again? Could I move past this betrayal? "I don't know if I can forgive you right now," I said softly, "but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to see if we can fix this. But I need you to understand that it's going to take time. I don't know how long, and I don't know if it will work, but I'm willing to try." She let out a shaky breath, her face lighting up with relief. "Thank you, Adam. Thank you for giving me a chance." I stood up, walking over to her, and pulled her into a hug. The moment felt bittersweet, as if we were standing on the edge of something that could either heal or break us forever. I didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, I knew that this was the beginning of something new. Something that would take time, patience, and a willingness to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. The weeks that followed our conversation were difficult, to say the least. While Sarah had promised to do everything she could to rebuild the trust between us, I still found myself questioning everything. Every small interaction felt loaded with meaning, every gesture or word carrying the weight of what had happened. It was hard to just pretend like things were normal again. The truth was, nothing felt normal anymore. Sarah had kept her word. She went to therapy, and we had open conversations about our feelings and our struggles. She was committed, no doubt about that. But as the days passed, I realized that the hardest part of rebuilding was not the communication or the promises, it was the trust. It was something I could no longer take for granted, something that had been irreparably damaged. For the first time in our marriage, I started to see Sarah as someone different. Not as the perfect wife I had once imagined her to be, but as a human being, flawed and capable of making mistakes. I had to remind myself of the person she was outside of the affair. The woman who had always been there for me, the woman I had fallen in love with. It was this tug of war between the woman I knew and the woman I had discovered that made every step forward feel like a 1,000-pound weight. And yet there were moments, small moments when I would catch a glimpse of the woman I had loved. Her laugh, the way she smiled when she thought I wasn't looking, the way she cared for our home and our life together. Those moments were like rays of light breaking through a stormy sky. Moments where I remembered why I had chosen her in the first place. But then the doubt would come crashing in again, like a wave I couldn't outrun. Could I truly forgive her? Could I ever feel the same about her again? Or was I simply holding on because I was afraid of the alternative, of being alone, of starting over? I knew I couldn't make this decision based on fear. I couldn't stay in a relationship where the trust was shattered, where I was living in constant uncertainty. I had to make a choice, and I knew that it was time to decide. One evening, as I sat on the couch, lost in thought, Sarah came to me with the quiet determination she had shown in the weeks following our conversation. She sat beside me, her hand finding mine, her touch soft but firm. I could feel the hope in her, the desire to fix what had been broken. "Adam," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion, "I know this hasn't been easy. I know that I've hurt you, and I don't expect everything to be okay right away. But I need you to know that I love you. I've always loved you, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you if you'll give me the chance." I looked at her, my heart heavy with the weight of what had transpired between us. I thought about the promises she had made, the ways she had worked to rebuild what had been broken. I thought about all the times I had wanted to walk away, to leave the pain behind. But every time I thought about it, I was reminded of the love I still had for her. I don't know if I can ever forgive you completely, Sarah, I said, my voice quiet, but filled with the truth of how I felt. I don't know if I can ever forget what happened, but I also know that I don't want to throw everything we've built away. Her eyes searched mine, filled with both hope and fear, as if she was bracing herself for whatever decision I was about to make. I understand, she whispered. I don't expect things to go back to the way they were. I just want a chance. A real chance to prove that we can be happy again. I took a deep breath, letting the weight of my decisions settle over me. I knew that this wasn't going to be easy. Rebuilding trust was a long and painful process, and there would be moments of doubt, moments when I wondered if I had made the right choice. But there was one thing I knew for certain. I still loved Sarah, and that love was worth fighting for. I'm willing to try, I said finally, my voice firm. I'm willing to try to rebuild, to move forward, but it won't be easy. It will take time, it will take work, and there will be moments when I'm not sure if I can do this, but I'm willing to try. For us. Tears welled up in her eyes as she squeezed my hand, her face filled with both relief and gratitude. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for giving us a chance. I won't waste it. I swear to you. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our decision hanging in the air, but also a sense of hope. We were starting over, not from scratch, but from a place of honesty, from a place where we both acknowledged the pain, the mistakes, and the need for change. We didn't have all the answers, and we didn't know what the future would hold. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like we had a chance. As we sat there side by side, I realized that sometimes the hardest thing in a relationship isn't the betrayal. It's the decision to stay, to fight for what you believe in, even when everything feels broken. And though the road ahead would be uncertain, it was a road I was willing to walk with Sarah, one step at a time.